week. First, housekeeping, we need to adopt our minutes from last week. So could somebody motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting?
I approve.
And then could somebody else second?
A second.
And then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? All right, with that, we accept our minutes from last week. I don't know if you all saw the agenda that we sent out today, but it's rather short. So I wanted to start off by just getting a feel for how you felt our conversation went with the superintendents last week. We really didn't get to have an opportunity to talk afterwards. So what were your major takeaways with that? How did you guys feel? Were there things that you wanted to follow up on?
I think last week was pretty good, but I don't know if they left with like knowing that we kind of want them to talk to the Board of Education or something like that. And so maybe if there's a way we could reiterate that to them to just make sure that they follow up with them because they had to leave rather early. So I just don't know if they like forgot about that, but if we could tell them about it again so that they can work with them on maybe like adjusting something or getting something back to us that we can maybe work with, I think that'd be nice.
And I did, Kirby and Jamil, I did capture that in our minutes, but certainly we can make sure that that's done.
Okay, thank you.
So for moving forward on that, we're rather limited because we're gonna, we had that conversation last week about the difference in political subdivisions and how organizations aren't really, because Hilliard fell into that. You're not allowed to lobby you're not supposed to lobby other organizations. But what you can do as individuals outside of this official setting is to annoy them, to send them emails, to call them, to invite them back here to have a conversation about what they're doing. Then it's not a formal request from the youth subcommittee of the city of Dublin. It's Jamil, Sammy, and Will are emailing me 3 times a day and trying to get a straight answer out of me.
I think that'd be a good idea.
And then, like I said, you can always invite them back and use this as a platform to get them to speak.
Also, to follow up on that, are there like any tasks that we can do before like next meeting? Maybe like I don't know if you have anything for us, Kirby, or if any of you other students have any ideas.
I do. I would love to hear what you guys have to say, and I've got a couple things for us to work on over the next week, but I wanted to make sure that you all had the opportunity to engage on last week and to come up with your own ideas. So don't worry, I've got homework for you.
If you can maybe throw out like one idea, it might like spark something. So
Sure, absolutely. But before we move on, was there any other comments about last week that you guys had, or any thoughts or options for moving forward in regards to the school district or the superintendents?
So I just want to clarify with Jamil, are you okay talking to Dr. Hoadley about possibly forming subcommittees within the schools? Are you prepared to present that idea to him?
yeah, I could present the idea to him. I don't know when our next meeting is, but I could just email him maybe. Because we kind of have like a little subcommittee, but it's not really like it's just an advisory committee. It's not really like a task force. So I think maybe I could throw that idea out to him just to get more students involved.
That's where you guys will really hit the ground running in regards to getting them to do things you want, because you can lobby the school board on top of the superintendents. Sammy, any thoughts about last week? Or are you guys ready to move on?
I don't really have anything. I think they covered it.
Cool. Yep, sounds good. Okay, so as you all know, because you've seen my emails about the communications and education subcommittee, we are reviewing our priority areas for our big strategic document that we're going to have as a task force and recommend that council accept. And so there is, and I'm going to share my screen real quick, there is a spot within that proposed framework that the youth subcommittee could have an opportunity to provide some input. So I wanted to review that with you all and just get you thinking about this and potentially what some of our recommendations could be to the task force at large. So I can see right here, youth engagement is within public engagement. And there are only 2 bullet points: to engage youth, to understand their needs and concerns. So you're recommending that the city do that. And to work with school systems, recreation, the arts, athletics, and Centero to build programs to serve all. Centero is a nonprofit. I'm not sure how aware you guys are of their presence in the city of Dublin. They do a lot of work with the city in providing nonprofit services to the elderly, to the disabled. There are some mental health clinics. There are programs for women. There's training. They provide all sorts of services, and they are definitely, I believe, looking to expand their reach within the city. So that's all we have for the youth so far. But I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to take a look at that, and to think about it and maybe spitball some ideas of some additional recommendations that you might have for the city, or we could even branch out from these 2 spots and get more specific on how you think the city should engage or organize youth.
I think maybe with number 1, how we engage with youth to understand their needs and concerns. I think we could tackle that one. Maybe this subcommittee, and maybe 2 the next one, something, because I feel like that's really broad, and they're
Sure.
like maybe like find a way to specify or like narrow that down to like specific ways we could do that. So I'm trying to think of specific ways now for
No,
number 1.
that's a very good point. And we don't have to have all the answers today. This is just kind of like, this is something we'll be working on over our next couple meetings. And if you wake up in the middle of the night with a brilliant idea, this isn't set in stone, so we can keep adding to it.
I do think one way we could maybe expand the reach we have is trying to expand this subcommittee itself and maybe try to bring in more students or more youth in the community so we can get a wider reaching ideas and more of their input.
With that, because over the last once we started the subcommittee, I had an idea. Like I have a friend who is on Dr. Hoadley's superintendent advisory committee, and I feel like he would have some ideas for this because his dad is like really big into like social justice and stuff like that, and so just even his dad would have a lot of good ideas. And so I think maybe if we could expand the subcommittee, I could ask him if he'd want to be a part of it.
Sure, absolutely. So what I'm hearing from Will was to formalize this subcommittee moving forward, not for it to be a temporary thing, to have like a formal youth council that meets and communicates with the city as to their needs. But one way in which we could formalize that even more is having a chairperson or like a president of the council, and then maybe we could advocate for that individual to have a permanent position on the eventual advisory board that this community task force will turn into. Because then that's a great opportunity not only for the youth subcommittee to have a voice on that community advisory board, but also it's a great opportunity for students to get some experience in engaging in the public policy process.
Yeah, I think if we use this more as a way for the city to gauge the youth, and if we do, like you said, expand it and formalize it, I think it'd be a valuable resource to the city, to hear their concerns.
Absolutely.
That's
Those are
true.
some good points.
Since we're like really still in like the developmental stage, getting a lot of different viewpoints and voices would be really key to making progress forward and rather quickly. Since we're trying to propose this in August, correct? So I think if we just expanding and getting more ideas, so we can get a lot of work done now, so that when it comes summertime, we can just finalize as our ideas.
Sure.
So I would say if we're looking to expand, Jamil and Sammy, I would say because you guys are more ingrained within the Dublin schools and with more Dublin residents, if you guys have anyone that would be, you think valuable to this subcommittee or advisory board, if it becomes that, I think that'd be good if we could try to get them on here and try to get them to become more regular members.
I definitely have I have one person in mind at least that I could text him tonight, and then I could maybe I don't know if I should go to you, Kirby, or Mr. McDaniel to ask him about this idea of maybe expanding it and getting him along board. Would I email you or Mr. McDaniel?
I would email Mr. McDaniel and CC me on it. The biggest hurdle with that is that I think that they would have to be formally appointed to the task force at large and then allocated to this subcommittee. But inviting them to speak or to listen is we don't have to jump through hoops for that.
Alrighty.
So one thought that I had in looking at this is that, if we look down here, these are some of the other priority areas that we're going to be reviewing this week at the Education and Communication Subcommittee. Leadership development, reflective government. If we go down rather quickly to the bottom, educational speaker series. I know that we had talked about that in our prior meetings. Community training about implicit bias, using the library as a meeting ground or having events at city events like the Dublin Irish Festival. And I got to thinking, we as a city focus on a lot of stakeholder groups. We have a lot of different demographics within the city, but I don't know how well we do at specifically targeting youth and making sure that that programming is for youth as well, and that there are times in which the youth are a focus. So maybe a recommendation that we could have is for the city to treat youth as a relevant stakeholder. I see head nods, so I'm going to write it down.
Yes, I would say that'd be very important and a good idea for the city going forward.
I'm reading number 2, and it's talking about like building programs to serve all. How would we maybe do that? Because I see it says like athletics and stuff like that. Like, how would we find a way like to build programs in athletics to serve all?
That's a very good question. That's one that I would have to ask Dana, because Dana specifically wrote that. I think his idea was to work with these groups that we work with to create programs for a myriad of different demographics, specifically for kids and specifically for youth. So serving as opportunities to pull people together and engage within the community. So obviously with the school systems, working with Dr. Hoadley and the subcommittees that you guys have to put together educational speaker series, recreation, I think it was specifically with the rec center, using that as an opportunity to as a platform to speak to youth who maybe frequent the rec center, have different activities. Not every DEI program needs to be at the library. You can do some interactive stuff in the gym and make it fun for youth, and it might attract more people. The arts and athletics, other clubs and social gatherings throughout the city that pulls together a lot of people. And then obviously Centero, we already talked about that. That's my understanding. I will write that down to touch base with Dana to see if that's within his understanding of what he was going for. But to the best of my knowledge, I think that's the direction we were going.
Okay, that sounds good. I was just a little confused about that, so thank you.
Do you guys think that's a good idea?
Yeah, I do, and especially when you brought up recreation, like I know, I mean, at least non-COVID years, like a lot of teenagers are like always at the rec center, either lifting or like running pickup games in the gym. And so I think just like even if you have like billboard or not billboards, but like posters there and stuff like that, just like at like I guess like advertise events going on around the city. If we could find a way to do that, I think that would be really like a good idea because I know like a lot of my friends are always there, or even at like Lifetime and stuff like that. So
Right. You know how there's mothers against drunk driving? We could do lifters against implicit bias. Any other ideas before we move on?
I would say, we can discuss using the rec center, but I do think a key is going to be having these programs all around the city and so that they can reach every demographic because not every demographic has access to the rec center or access to the library because they may not be able to get there. So I think the key is going to be that when we design these programs, they need to be citywide. They can't be focused in one spot or one area that maybe a marginalized group that could really benefit from the program can't reach.
to touch up on that, even like if we're talking youth, we could put it in all the school, like in all the school buildings, and not just like put up a poster, but like I know at least at Kaufman we do like morning announcements, so we could like actually talk about it and so that people know what's going on, because there are multiple like occasions where events are going on and a lot of students are like, wait, like that happened because they just put up a poster in the hallway, and so like I think actually like advocating and talking about it would be a better way to reach out to the youth specifically.
Absolutely. So I wrote down kind of some of the topic points of what we just discussed, but what I'm really hearing is finding innovative and new engaging ways to have these conversations in a way that may attract different people who maybe aren't into the whole library TED Talk style, that would have conversation flowing towards people who typically wouldn't engage.
And as Jamil said about the schools, I think the advertisement in the schools and the promotion within the schools is going to be the key because there you have a captive audience of the youth. And so, you know, if in a way, if you kind of shove it down their throats, you might have a good amount that actually listen.
Sure. So I think we've made really good progress today. Unless anyone has any other Einstein ideas currently, we can move on. Try to think of this over the next week, and we'll, over our next couple meetings, just keep touching base and reminding ourselves of this. And if we have anything, add it. You want to send me an email and tell me to add it, I will. Even if it's, like I said, in the middle of the night, you woke up and had a brilliant Tesla idea, do it. Send me an email. I'll throw it on here. All right. Well, thank you for running through that with me. I think we had some good ideas on what we could do moving forward. So Dana wanted me to touch base with you all about your interest in inviting more guests to these meetings. You know, before he had mentioned potentially having the chief of police on, and that was something that you all were interested in. Obviously, we didn't get that to happen this meeting. But is that something you guys would be interested in for our next meeting, next Monday night?
I think that could be a good idea. And then also, if you can touch up with him and maybe send an email out to us about, like we mentioned, just other youth, just so that we can maybe start that next week and just get it going instead of waiting like a few weeks and trying to figure that out.
Absolutely. I will bring that up to him.
I do think talking with the police chief will be good because I think perception of the police among the youth is a very controversial issue, and it's a very divided issue that a lot of people. And so I think if we could come up with ideas and kind of help him on the perception of the police, that would be beneficial to both sides.
I will do everything I can to get him here next Monday, but if we have to, it might be 2 weeks out. But I will send him an email tonight during council and ask him. So those were all the things that I really wanted to hit on. I wanted to make sure that you guys had content for our meetings moving forward. I wanted to make sure that we hit on our priority areas so that we do our homework and we start brainstorming. Are there any other ideas, thoughts, recommendations, anything you guys want to talk about? This is roundtable, so you can bring up whatever you want. Well, that's fine. We don't need something to do. This has been a productive meeting, even though it's been short. I will, like I said, I'll pull in the chief. We have a meeting next Monday, and that's the last one we have scheduled. Did you want to continue these weekly at the same time? How is this working out for you guys?
I think that we probably should keep doing it weekly, especially if we're getting more people on the like invite guests, I guess. But especially if we're getting more youth members and if we need more guest speakers, I think we should continue this weekly just to because at least we're kind of still in that development stage, so I want to make sure that we do get the ideas from everyone, and then maybe a month from now we can start to dwindle down the process.
No, I think that's a really good idea. So our homework in terms of the timeline of the community task force at large is to be able to speak about the priority areas and our ideas at the next task force meeting at large, like I said. So we'll have another meeting before then. We'll hopefully have the chief next week, and we can spend another 15 minutes going over our priority areas and bringing up any new thoughts that we had over the prior week, and we'll just keep making incremental progress.
And as we approach the general task force meeting, could you send out that document to us as it's updated throughout the? Perfect.
Absolutely. I'll send it to you after this, just so you guys have it and you can play around with it in your own settings if you want.
Thank you.
All right, so hearing nothing else, we can adjourn unless there are any other burning desires. But otherwise, you all have a great week. I will see most of you, I think, on Thursday for the Education and Communications Subcommittee, which we're going to do the same thing, except there are a lot more priority areas and a lot more people, so it's going to take longer. But take a look at those priority areas for me and just have some general stances as to whether or not we're on the right path. That would be incredibly beneficial. All right, thank you guys. Everybody have a good week.
Thank you, you too.